Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last of our summer series webinars focused on our artificial lift optimization app. The title of this webinar is Leverage Physics-Based and Data-Driven Analysis to Improve Operational Efficiency and Increase Production. My name is Kesley Price, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Datagration. Joining me today is Brian Marlborough, who is our VP of Platform Development and Commercialization. First this morning, I'll give you a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today, including PetroVisor's Artificial Lift Optimization app and its features. I'll then turn it over to Brian for the live in-depth demo of PetroVisor. Then at the end, we will answer a few questions after the demo and have some of our Datagration subject matter experts answering your questions via the YouTube chat window. So please submit any questions or comments that you might have on the right side of your video screen throughout the presentation. Let's dive in. The visual here shows you a high-level view of the architecture of PetroVisor's Unified Data Model, or what we call the UDM. Built on top of the UDM are the data applications. In our summer series of webinars, we've covered the Production Optimization app and Completion Optimization app, and our last webinar at the end of July covered the ESG app. These applications enable users to combine complex data analytics, physics-based modeling, and sophisticated economic modeling processes into a single unified view. Today, we'll be covering elements of the Artificial Lift Optimization application, which is built natively within PetroVisor and allows your team to focus on improving mechanical integrity and increasing production output. Brian will go over this more in depth here shortly, but some of what we will be covering today shows you the summary, production, performance, and problem detection features available in our Artificial Lift Optimization app. Key capabilities in our AL app, just to name a few, include automations reducing the time spent manually reviewing wells, ranked well candidates, failure notifications, and automated alerts. You can create proactive measures to mitigate production loss, integrated engineering with KPIs, built-in machine learning for event detection, and company-wide data clarity and accountability to reach measurable goals. Over the next 20 minutes, Brian will touch on all of these. In addition to our Artificial Lift app, it allows E&P companies to reduce downtime and increase overall production and system integrity by automating critical computations with analytical, data-driven, and physics-based processes. And depending on time, I know he plans to cover our ESP, sucker rod pump, plunger lift, and gas lift offerings that we have. So Brian, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kesley, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We have people from all over the globe joining us today. What we'll cover are some aspects focused onshore, but we'll also cover aspects for our offshore customers as well. We have PetroVisor deployed in many regions across the globe, and today we're going to focus on artificial lift, starting with ESP, and really dive into the mechanical and the production side of ESP and all artificial lift types, looking at the factors that increase uptime, reliability, and ultimately the sustainability and operations for each artificial lift type. What you can see on the screen here will be common throughout each of the 4 artificial lift types we touch on today. This is really the home screen, the summary screen. This is where you would go if you wanted a quick snapshot right now of what is occurring in the field for that artificial lift type. So for ESP, what we see is I can filter by a time frame. So we have incoming data. In this case, we're aggregating it on a 24-hour period. We're looking at virtual flow meters as well as forecasts. And we're looking at an entire field and all the wells that are inside of that field. What immediately jumps out is our performance ranking. These are our algorithms that we've built in to look at ESPs in this case and look at things like the wear factor, efficiency, and performance. Now, some of these factors are looking at near-term comparison. So performance is relative to a short period in time. So that could be yesterday's data, last week's data. We're looking at the efficiency and the performance of this ESP well relative to how it performed in the near term. We're also looking at a wear factor and efficiencies that are more longer term. So over time, are there stresses we're putting on this ESP well that we need to track, that we need to be aware of? So when I look here, I could see immediately that well number 43 is jumping out. So well number 43 is experiencing some wear. I can click on that well. It's going to zoom right into the location. It's also going to show me the oil production relative to the period of time. We have filtered, a forecast, and any variance. So I can see that this well is definitely underperforming against our forecast. That forecast can come in from systems like Aries. You may have your own tool to come up with that forecasting, and we would bring that in. And this is common for all our artificial lift types when we want to compare actual performance against expected performance. So we can see that there is some variance in what we planned to produce for this well and what we actually produced. We could see different things like the factors of oil, water, and gas for this well, again, in that period of time that I selected here for that specific well. So I want to jump in now to well number 43, and take a deeper dive. So I want to look at factors like the production. So connecting to your production accounting system, connecting to your SCADA system. PetroVisor connects to all of these data points to bring together, aggregate and consolidate that data, and we run advanced analytics on top of that. What we see here is just the general production for that well, and I'm going to select number 43 as I was looking at the whole field there. We can see again, here's the forecast, heavy obviously on the oil side for ESPs, but we have quite a bit of variance here shown in these KPI cards. You can also see that the water cut is going up quite a bit here. So, I ask myself this question is, are we producing oil as expected against the water cut, or are we producing oil that is not relative to how this pump is performing against, let's say, its curves? So now I'm going to get a little bit deeper in there and look at exactly that. Here are my pump performance curves. And here's where that pump is falling along those bands. So immediately I can see that this pump is underperforming relative to where it should be on its specific curve. So we would load these performance curves for our customers. Our customers should have access to these curves in most cases. And so we're going to track the actual performance of this pump against that curve. We can also see that we're looking at alarms and violations of, in this case, wear and tear on that pump. And we can see a trend consolidated over a period of time. Again, this is down to the filtering mechanism here. In this case, we're looking at an entire 2-year period, but I could zoom that into certain sections if I wanted to see it by the month or by the year. All of that data is incoming on a daily basis that allows us to see this pump relative to a specific period of time. So now I'm looking at this pump and I've validated that we have a variance against our expected production. I can see that there's some wear occurring here. We're flagging that in our alarms, but I also see it's underperforming against its curve. So let's take a look at the advisory system that's built within PetroVisor. For well number 43, again, we are looking at the likelihood of issues developing over time. What the system is flagging for me based on the calculations of all of the incoming data and our own algorithms looking at performance is that this pump is experiencing wear and tear. It's flagging the problem as the pump is wearing out. So what does that mean for us? We have this advisory system built in to PetroVisor that can either be our recommended actions, but most likely this is your recommended actions for your specific areas as it relates to how you want your operators to approach these different problems and these different issues with that pump. So here, a worn pump, this is how our out-of-the-box terminology, which would be changed customer to customer. It's a good indirect change management tool when we want to flag issues, and how we want the operators, the field engineers, whoever that might be, to approach that field ops. I can also see for this pump, I can look at different issues that may be occurring, and you can see the likelihood here. This likelihood is a prediction of this factor, this problem occurring. So it's not a prediction of exactly when, where, and how this pump will have a failure, but using all the incoming data, this algorithm is predicting these likelihoods of this failure occurring within a certain period of time, using advanced ML and multivariate regression. So we're bringing all of that data together and right in the hands of your users. We're putting these flags and these notifications of events that are occurring with this pump. So this is one of the key areas that help field ops, field engineers focus on what's important and focus on what may be the problems developing over time for these specific areas for this one pump. Now we have all the pumps listed here, so I could go through all of those and we could look at any problems developing and the alarms that are triggered based on each individual well. Okay. We also have areas where we have systems efficiency and incoming data, such as the pump parameters and different flags and alarms that are coming from it. Could be your SCADA system, your HMI system. You may have a specific system just for ESPs. With the unified data model, we can connect to that data and we can bring that in, centralize that, and allow everyone in the organization to have access to things like pump parameters over time. We have the bidirectional API built into PetroVisor, which allows all of this data to come in, be aggregated, consolidated, and then a single API connection out to any other system. So if you needed to access this data, but you weren't connected directly to your SCADA system, you can connect to PetroVisor and still get the same data with one easy connection to our API. I'm going to now switch over to some of the other areas of artificial lift. We'll start now with our sucker rod pumps. You can see again the layout and the areas of visualization are similar. The areas of focus are also similar, but very specific to, in this case, a sucker rod pump. You'll see the same when we get into plunger lift and gas lift. So for our sucker rod pumps, here's our production versus our forecast. PetroVisor has our own virtual flow meter built in. So if you don't have specific forecasts for this well, you can use the VFM, the virtual flow meter, to supplement that as well. So I can see overall, I'm showing all 15 wells here. We seem to be trending well against our forecast. Right? Now, if I look here, I can see that the score, so the performance score here, is being flagged. So this well, 100, is underperforming against expectations. I can click there. I can see where that well is. I can see how it's trending over time. And I can dive deeper in to look at the specific production performance of well number 100. So when I look at this one well, and what I've done is I've filtered this here to be within a 10-month time period, we can see that this well is very much, from a production standpoint, underperforming against what we had forecasted. Okay. So now I want to take a look, another deeper look, like what might be some of the reasons. So let's look at the performance. Performance of this sucker rod pump, we're bringing in Dynacards. So we can digitize these Dynacards. We can bring those in from your systems. So PetroVisor is bringing in all of these Dynacards, and what it's doing is it's looking at all of your specific Dynacards, and it's looking at the trends. We also have our own algorithms in the back with machine learning and MVR again that are looking at set issues with different versions of Dynacards. So this is actually a machine learning model we have built in, and that is flagging issues as they develop based on our standard model, but also your specific information incoming to train the model better and better each time it's run. So we can see again, pump number 100, well number 100 is not doing that well. The Dynacard is showing us that visually. We can also see we have a challenge here with pump fillage and also the health status, and our confidence is that in what this Dynacard is showing based on the machine learning is that there is an insufficient inflow to the pump itself, which is causing the erratic behavior that you see here on screen. Again, I can dive deeper in to look at specific parameters coming from our SCADA system and look at these trends over time, select that specific well, look at any alarms that may be occurring, anything that may be outside of bands that we set up within PetroVisor to provide notifications to us as field engineers, field operators, as personnel maintaining and operating the mechanical and the production side to ensure the best uptime for these systems. So the next one we'll dive into is gas lift. Again, very, very similar. We're looking at performance factors, and I can see that there is an issue here in both the differential, but also the performance factor is looking like this one well is not performing to our expected. All right. Again, jump into production for that one well. And now the performance. The performance here is a little bit different than we've seen before in that we're looking at a measured performance curve. This curve has both an economic limit and a technical limit. These can be user-defined presets per well, or these can be actual engineered and defined presets for these wells. So the economic limit itself may change depending on your commodity price deck, where you may have hedges, where it's economical to use this gas lift system to lift each barrel from the well. The technical limit can be subject to the different engineering parameters, the different design parameters of your system. So that's where I would say that those could change well to well, and most likely they will. So what we see here on screen is that our curve, which is the yellow dotted line, is really where this should be operating at within the economic and the technical limit towards the higher end of that curve. So what jumps out to me right away is the differential and is the amount of oil we're producing relative to that predefined curve that we've put here. So that's confirmation for me that this well is in fact underperforming. So now we need to take a deeper dive into that well to see, well, what might be some of those reasons. And that's a great opportunity for field ops to come in and flag this well as needing a deeper look. Maybe you put that on the high end of your rounds, so operating by exception. PetroVisor has systems to help our customers do that we won't get into in this webinar, but operating by exception is key. So we have 3 wells flagged here. If those were on in my field and in my rounds that I would do on a weekly or daily basis, these would be top of mind that I need to go and analyze, go dive into, get there on site and figure out why this may be occurring. And finally, we're going to look at plunger lift. So plunger lift is a little more unique in that we're going to look at things like the expected performance, but we're also going to track the mileage as well of our mechanisms. So here we've got some wells that have some issues with could be the velocity, could be different problems developing that we're going to dive a little bit deeper in. And so we're going to look at things like problem detection and plunger replacement scores. So with the problem detection, I'm looking at the things like the differential over time, the velocity, right? These are all factors that can be typically set on a plunger lift system by each user, could be on each tower. So each time we have a crew change, we may decide to set it based on how we like to operate. When I was in the field, offshore, deep water, we would have different crews that would crew change every 2 weeks, and they would have different ways they like to optimize their systems. PetroVisor is doing is it's bringing all that data in to allow all your users and all your crews to see that data over time to better optimize and create a system around each well for each crew to start to look at and start to follow. So with the plunger replacement, we're looking at the travel and we're looking at the time period between. So I can see here that we have mileage and we have our mileage alarms. So quickly I can see here that we actually replaced the plunger in, it was a little before November 21, and then it ran a lot longer. So does that mean we optimized things like velocity and we got a little bit more out of that plunger? It's exactly what we built this system to flag and to communicate is how do you get more out of your systems? How do they become more sustainable? And how do you increase the uptime? So one byproduct of Plunger Lift is off gas. So it's actually emissions, where we do have an ESG webinar that we've covered this previously, but the more you can maintain normal operations in your artificial lift systems, the more opportunity you have to actually decrease emissions because you don't have as many process upsets. So right here, I can see that we replaced our plunger. We got some more life out of it. We replaced it here. And now the system is flagging that, hey, our plunger replacement score for this one, it's getting close to the peak to where we recommend taking a look at that and potentially doing a replacement. So the system's actually flagging me to go focus on this well number 7 and go look at the mileage and look at the opportunity to plan to replace this this plunger. Okay. Now with that, I'm going to turn back over to Kesley to see if there's any questions we can run through from the audience.
Thank you, Brian. It doesn't look like we have any questions yet. Please feel free to submit those on the right side of the YouTube video screen. Comments are also welcome. I guess I'll start with some of the most commonly asked questions that we get during demos and customer meetings. So Brian, first question for you. Do you have a way to notify individuals or groups of alarms, and are these real time? And the second part to that is, can I set my own alarm rules?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the answer to that is actually a PetroVisor wide answer. So we have notification systems built into PetroVisor. These can be either within a data boundary. So if my pressure drops below a certain set point or it goes above a certain set point, notify me. Those notifications can be pushed out through Teams. So direct to a handheld via Teams notification. You could send them through emails. There's many different ways that PetroVisor can notify and flag the users. Most common is probably through Teams. Everyone has that installed in their computer or their handheld nowadays. So we can set those boundaries, we can set those alarms and those rules to push that to specific individuals, specific groups, or depending on the severity, you could even have that notify different groups if it's, say, a severity threshold 1, 2, or 3.
Great. Second question. Are you going to dive deeper in the future for each lift type?
Yeah, so that will be incoming in the future, where we'll focus on each one of the types that we covered today in detail. So a great one that I've done in the past with the customer was around ESP. So we'll have our experts on the line as well. We have many experts on staff up to the PhD level in petroleum engineering that know these systems in and out, that will dive deep into how our algorithms come up with the numbers they do, where these data sources may be connected, and how we're flagging these issues that previously you may not have been able to see because of disconnected and disparate systems.
All right, guys. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any additional questions or we weren't able to answer your questions or comments via the chat before the end of the session, please feel free to reach out to Brian or myself. Our contact information is displayed. This recording will be available via our YouTube channel and our website. If you're interested in scheduling a demo tailored to you or your team and your company's needs, please reach out to any of us at Datagration or submit a demo request via our website. Thank you again for your time and have a great day.